Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to kind of go through a series of questions, and we're going to start with Melanie, then we'll go to Brandon, then we're going to go to Angelica. And when we're done with the panel, you're more than welcome to ask questions. Andrew and I can walk around with the mics, and if you have any questions or even comments you just want to share, we want you to feel completely comfortable and open to be able to do that, okay? So we're going to start with everybody sharing their name, who they're here in support of that lives with scleroderma, a little bit about their loved one before diagnosis, and what symptoms led up to that diagnosis of scleroderma. And I'm going to start with Melanie.
Hi, my name is Melanie Ryngler. I'm here with my husband, David, the love of my life for the past 32 years. Before scleroderma, David was running his own cosmetic manufacturing company, driving 75 miles a day in each direction. I actually diagnosed David myself 2 years ago when he first noticed tightening of his skin both on his arms and legs, as well as Raynaud's, and struggled to get up the stairs to his office. He was also showing first signs at that time of Raynaud's. You may all think, well, that's crazy. You diagnosed him when so many people take so long to be diagnosed? Not as crazy as when you hear that I also had an incredible sister, my best friend, who lived with scleroderma for over 21 years. What are the odds of a husband and a sister? I spent so many of those years helping her and being part of her caregiving team, almost on a daily basis. Unfortunately, she passed away 12 years ago after a long battle with this awful disease. When I first met and connected with Tina and shared David's story along with my sisters, I found out that Tina actually knew my sister Sharon from when she worked at UCLA and reminded me that my sister always referred to this disease, if you'll excuse my language, as scleroderma. Tina said that she always had everyone in the waiting room laughing with that one. That's just who she was, always making jokes and making other patients feel better, never ever complaining about her terrible condition she was in. You asked how the diagnosis of scleroderma affected me and my family. As I mentioned,
Melanie?
Yes.
Actually, I'm going to go to that next.
Sure.
I'm going to ask everybody to go through that first part first.
You got it.
Thank you. And thank you for telling me. And I want you guys to know, her sister didn't say effing. She said the word. Okay? And everybody just got a kick out of it and said, yeah. And it would just sort of go down the line that everybody was just echoing what she said. That's what I think of it too. It was really, she'd rally up the room. We're sitting there drawing blood and doing vital signs, and her sister's rallying up the room, and everybody's saying sclera-effing-derma. So just wanted to share that. I never forgot her. And as soon as I started talking to her, she has her voice. I recognized it. And these are years ago, you guys, but you know, scleroderma has a way of bringing people together. And while it's not always the best way, I've met some incredible people as a result of it. So thank you, Melanie. Brandon, can you share the same?
Yeah, my name is Brandon Schoelz, and I'm here because of my wife, Michelle, who was diagnosed mid-pandemic in 2020. We were actually both born here at Cedars-Sinai exactly 4 weeks apart, so we're here full circle right now. We have 2 boys that are now 14 and 16, 2 dogs, a cat that thinks she's a dog, and a bearded dragon that thinks she's a paperweight. Before diagnosis in 2020, she was a teacher at the boys' school and was extremely active as a mom. Our family was and still is her passion, and she could never slow down or sit idle while there was an idea in her head about how she could do something for us. She truly lives to nurture her family. In mid-2019, she started noticing that her skin was feeling tight and, in her words, felt like it didn't fit. Then her feet started to hurt after short walks, and her hands would turn white, which was the Raynaud's. We had gone to the ER and urgent care frequently because it was becoming unbearable and we needed a solution. It got to the point where they asked her to stop coming in because they didn't know what to do for her. Some of the medicine she was given even gave her some really strong allergic reactions. But when the pandemic and lockdown hit, we were dealing with a lot of stress, as most people were. But on top of it all, our dishwasher sprung a hidden leak in May 2020, which required a full gutting of our kitchen to remove mold that had grown behind the wall. So between the changes we were adjusting to for the pandemic and the stress of not having a kitchen while the world was shut down and contractors coming into our home to rebuild, Michelle's symptoms got worse very quickly. Her skin was feeling tighter, her feet and joints were on fire, hands would turn completely white when they got slightly cold, and sleep was strongly impacted. Without knowing what was going on, the stress compounded everything. We ended up on a long, bumpy road to find a doctor that was able to diagnose, but we are here, so we did get there.
Thank you, Brandon. Angelica, can you share?
Yes. My name's Angelica Nixon, and my mother's name is Antonieta Shori. She was diagnosed with scleroderma in 1997 after a 12-month-long period of agony. Prior to the onset of scleroderma, Mom was the picture of health. There were no warning signs. There were no health issues. In 1991, my mom purchased a business in downtown LA, but she still had a second job as a server. We went into business with family, and the rest is predictable if you've ever gone into business with family. That went bad. So that took a devastating role on my mom mentally and physically. And by the end of 1995, things got really, really challenging. Little did we know that at that time, scleroderma was already playing its role. Mom decided to take a break and visited family in Mexico. But when she returned, I could tell that she was severely withdrawn. And so I tried to give her some time to come around, but things just got worse. I'm sorry. I tried to give her some time to come around, but it just wasn't happening. Things just kept getting worse. No appetite, and so when she would eat, she'd throw up, and I was really concerned. At the time, I worked for Robert Sinski, ophthalmologist here in Santa Monica, and he saw me upset, and he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "My mom is going through something, and I don't know what it is." He sent me to a friend of his across the street, and he said, "This looks like pancreatic cancer to me." So melting into the chair, he said, "I'm going to give you a letter. Take her to the ER at UCLA right now." I literally got in the car and we drove to the emergency room, and she was admitted. She was assessed, but it took time to finally diagnose her with scleroderma, and finally in 1997, she was referred to Dr. Philip Clements, who diagnosed her with scleroderma, and at that point our world turned upside down.
Thank you, Angelica. I always find it so interesting that everybody has a little bit they can identify with, but everybody has a different story at the same time. And now the question I'm going to start with Melanie is, I just want to get an idea of how that diagnosis affected you and your family.
Well, as I mentioned before, David was the strongest, healthiest guy prior to diagnosis. He literally saw his doctor once a year, and that was it. After running his own company for the past 30 years, driving that 150-mile round trip, never ever complaining about the brutal commute until this disease caught up with him and he could no longer cope with the drive nor the stress of running a company, and decided to retire, or should I say had no choice but to retire, focusing on his health. At this point, our incredible son and daughter and family took the reins, helped sell the business, helped us move into a one-level home to make life as easy as possible. The emotional stress of dealing with scleroderma a second time with such a close family member has definitely taken a toll on my health, but I try to do the very best I can and be as positive as David is. After all, he's the one with the scleroderma, not me. So I open the car door for him and help him out instead of the other way around. Big deal. It's 2024, after all, roles have changed anyhow. I'm sure I don't need to go into further physical aspects of the help that one needs with scleroderma, as you all know yourselves. David's always been the strong one physically. He's always been able to do the handy things around the house. He loved fixing things himself. He loved fixing the electric, doors that you had to get into the garage, etc. He'd fix refrigerators and ovens. He always loves to challenge himself never to call in a handyman, and unfortunately, that just doesn't happen anymore. He keeps up his spirits every day, and we tell each other things will get better. Tomorrow will be a better day, praying and hoping this particular flare will be over. He's so kind and caring and generous to everyone and does not allow his pain, his inability to do things to change who he is. He does not want anybody to feel sorry for him, so no matter who calls or visits, even on the worst day, and asks how he's feeling, he always answers, "Great." If only you could see the crazy faces I pull when I hear this, because I have to admit he always says he loves complaining to me.
Thank you, Melanie. What about you, Brandon?
The diagnosis was difficult for Michelle and me because the doctor that originally tested her told her that it was an ugly disease and that there was nothing he can do for us. So our first exposure to learning about this disease was basically a death sentence. It was a really rough start and gave us a very scary view of what could be ahead for us. One positive thing about this happening during the pandemic is that I now work from home, so I was able to take the time and go with her on her appointments and everything she needed. At the time, we had an HMO through my work that was tied down to a terrible medical group that had given us so much trouble for the original diagnosis. Luckily, it was open enrollment a week after we learned that she had this, so I was able to change our insurance to a PPO, which allowed us to go to UCLA and get the care that we needed without basically being told that it's game over. Our finances continue to struggle because there was this increase in medical bills, but also Michelle had to stop working about a year into the diagnosis. But we just do our best to prioritize her care. Then we get to take care of the petty things like our mortgage and car insurance.
Thank you. And again, as I hear you guys talking, I'm sure it so resonates a lot with the audience because a lot of the things that you said and Melanie, and I'm sure Angelica, everybody can relate to. So can you also share the same?
Yes. Well, at this point of diagnosis, life was not normal anymore. Emotionally, I was spent. I'm an only child. I would stay in the hospital with my mom until she fell asleep per her request. Don't leave, just stay. I would drive from UCLA to Claremont late at night, tried to sleep, get up at 6 a.m. the next day. I worked in Santa Monica, fortunately, and then UCLA, and then home, UCLA, home. I actually fell asleep behind the wheel a couple of times, and I just know that it wasn't my time. I would wake up and I'd be 3 lanes over. My family suffered the worry of potentially losing, my mom. But they were also feeling my absence. I wasn't home very much. At that point, I asked for FMLA, and I focused on my mom while I continued to be emotionally absent from my family. And eventually, my husband, I just didn't feel I had the support. He kept telling me, "Your mom's going to be okay. Your mom's going to be okay." At 87 pounds, and I didn't see that. I thought I was going to lose my mom. So when he kept telling me she was going to be okay, there was something in me that I just couldn't recover from. So I think panic blinds you at some point. And the only thing that mattered was to get my mom healthy again.
Thank you. My next question was, I just wanted to get an idea of how you initially coped with your loved one living with scleroderma, and and then sort of today. How is that coping today? Where are you today? Melanie, can you start with that, please?
Well, after being told at our first visit with the rheumatologist that I did not know what I was talking about and that he should simply see a dermatologist, the first thing I did was do my own research and look for the best possible rheumatologist who specialized in scleroderma. I was very fortunate and thank God every day for being referred to our beloved Dr. Boyne. Immediately after his being diagnosed with aggressive systemic scleroderma. How lucky we are to have found this incredible doctor who not only has opened this amazing clinic right here at Cedars-Sinai and is doing so much research for us all, but is a true, kind, caring, wonderful human with the best bedside manner of any doctor we have ever come across, as well as the great team he has around him. That makes all the difference in the world to us.
Thank you, Melanie. Brandon?
Yeah. So when you get the diagnosis, a lot goes through your head. But as a parent, you kind of go to your kids first. And so one of the first things we felt we had to do was explain to our boys what was happening. With them being 10 and 12, we weren't sure how to tell them about something we didn't even understand. It was important to be honest, but we didn't want them to feel scared. So we sat them down and excitedly explained that we had finally figured out what was happening to Mom. And that put them at ease because now they could have some hope that she could get better. For me, the first few weeks were rough because it took some time to really believe that it was going to be okay. Things got difficult for me to the point I felt depressed, tired, extremely anxious in social situations. I've struggled with time management and most executive function my whole life, so I kept feeling like I was failing Michelle while I was helping her. I ended up seeking help for the depression and anxiety and learned that I also have ADHD. With gaining control of the mental barriers, I was able to more easily accept that this was going to be the new normal, and it just became my purpose. More importantly, I knew that it was Michelle going through this, and even though it affected me in a number of negative ways, it would never compare to what she's living with. I think I still channel that fear, exhaustion, anxiety, or whatever I'm feeling into relieving her of those things. Helping her feel better will always help me feel better. We've realized that her health is the biggest priority, so if we can't go out and do the things we used to, at least she's getting a chance to improve and feel better. We always stay grateful for what we have because there are so many people out there that go through much worse with much less.
Thank you, Brandon. Angelica?
When Mom was discharged from the hospital, they assigned a home health nurse to her, and I watched like a hawk. I was afraid to do anything wrong that might accidentally hurt her or even cause her death. I was petrified. So I shifted into this mode where I designed a spreadsheet for her medications. I would log her vitals and her food log and temperature and just a little bit of a craziness because I wanted to make sure I did everything the way the nurse was doing it. I'd like to say that I've relaxed since, but in reality, I'm just less pushy and less obvious. I'm going to go off the rails a little bit. I had my moment when my mom was hospital. I always refer to it as the terms of endearment moment. And I realized that wasn't going to work because I had to go to work and my mom was in the hands of the nurses. So I flipped it. I'd come to the hospital with bagels and cream cheese and coffee and candy and donuts and just begging the nurses to please tend to my mom. I knew they were overwhelmed, but it was important for me. And that shifted a lot of my anxiety. It came down some. We now live in Long Beach, and we still travel to UCLA, and sometimes the specialists are out of the way. Sometimes they're in Calabasas, or Torrance is a little closer, but we make the best of it. We take the scenic road back, and we stop for lunch, and we try to make it a positive. I call it her reward after her visit. Like you said, what we go through is a fraction sometimes of what they're physically suffering. I want to be there to support her in every which way I can. I wear a lot of hats. I'm her voice, I'm her protector, and her advocate. And I get on people's nerves, but I can live with that. To think that my mom's been living with scleroderma for almost 30 years, and she's 91 now. She made 91 in June. She is, I know everybody says this, but she's an extraordinary lady. She is. She inspires me every day. Huge shoes to fill, and I'm very grateful. that I have the best mom anyone can have. We cope better now. My mom worked a lot when I was young, so we really never had that mother-daughter bond, when I was growing up, and now that I've spent most of my time with her, I really enjoy that. Knowing that you're not alone is really important. We were connected with Dr. Clements. That's where we met Tina. And we were able to meet others with scleroderma that suffered similar symptoms. And we learned more about the disease and how to manage it. We started attending some of the support group meetings and even accompanied Tina. We went to San Diego. We had a really good time. And we joined some of the online meetings, the webinars, and throughout the pandemic, those were really, really helpful. Topics that we're interested, we would go ahead and sign in and learn all about that. But there is something almost magical about knowing you are not alone. That's the part that I really found very helpful, that we could exchange ideas and feel less afraid knowing that we were not alone.
Thank you. I have to say, when I first met Angelica in clinic, I knew right away that one day she'd be up here on this stage doing something like this. And it's funny, as she was telling you the story, there's even movies when somebody walks into the room and you stand at attention. That's what she commands when her mom is in the hospital. And you guys know, if any of you were in the hospital during the pandemic, that was a tough time. They wouldn't let you in there most of the time to be there with your loved ones. And it got to the point where she didn't care if they didn't like her. She was going to make sure her mom was taken care of. And they knew her by name. So I just thought I'd throw that in because I do remember that. And another thing is when we were going to go to the San Diego Patient Education Day together, her mom knitted all of the support group leaders teal scarves. I'll never forget it. It was beautiful. We still have pictures from it. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you, Tina.
So thank you. Melanie, I want to start with you. I want you to share what advice would you like the audience to know about your journey and what they can take away from today's panel.
Having a positive attitude, which I'm so fortunate David has been most of the time, has really helped us. David's daily attitude is, I will be the first one to beat this disease. And even though he struggles daily with lots of ups and downs, he always believes tomorrow will be a better day. Having a wonderful family and friend group around us to give us support, who visit us regularly, and most importantly, our grandkids who visit regularly on a regular basis, even though some of them are teenagers, they do spend a lot of time with us, keep David very occupied playing cards with him when he's on his exhausted days and can't do much else. And basically just a positive attitude is what I recommend. But I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank you, Tina, for arranging this special day for all of us and all the doctors who've given up their weekend day to do this with us specialists, especially Dr. Boyne, who we really love and care for so much, and for devoting their time and to help each and every one of us patients or our other half patients. We are forever grateful to you.
Oh, thank you, Melanie. I want to add that I think that any teenagers that actually want to hang out with you is quite a feat. So I would say that you guys must be very likable to have those teenagers wanting to hang around.
Thank you.
Brandon?
Yeah, stress is a huge aggravator of symptoms. Staying in control of your reactions and not trying to force outcomes was the best way for us to keep that under control. When there's a challenge in front of us, we focus on the things we can do about it rather than try to explain everything to ourselves and fight it. A good example of this is how our family and friends reacted to our diagnosis. I think everyone that goes through this will experience the way your family copes with it. It scares them too, and in our case, the easiest way for them to cope is to not see it, so they essentially disappear. That gets really hard to accept when the people you love aren't around when you need them the most. But again, forcing an outcome just isn't in our control, So you have to let them process it in their own way, no matter how much you disagree with it. They eventually accept it in their own time, and if they don't, then there's something that they're struggling with more than you realize.
Beautifully said. I think, again, those are the moments that the reason we have these panels is sometimes it's like the old saying, somebody was thinking it, but you said it. And getting those words out and validates a room, because a lot of people are going through that with family, and I have seen that for years. Yeah. And just getting it out, not only for you and Michelle, but also for sometimes the family members that haven't gotten to that point. They were able to hear it from you, and it's validating to a lot of the people that are in the room today. So thank you. Angelica?
I'm going to sound corny, but that's okay. My children are now grown and they have families of their own, and they have forgiven my absence. They realize that I love my mother more than anybody realized. They love my mom more than they realized. And that has helped our healing. They understand that when you love someone that much and you see them suffer, common sense, rationale, all fly out the window. So we wake up grateful now to every day. We spend time with each other. Sometimes we talk about profound things. We talk about my mom's childhood. And sometimes we just wonder why Kiwis are hairy. We don't take anything for granted. She could be feeling great one day, and before you know it, we're back in the ER. My advice, if you're a caregiver, it would be okay to solicit the help of a therapist, of a specialist that can help you through that. Because there are times when you need to be weak, when you need to unravel, when you need to cry, when you need to just let it all hang out and not let your loved one see that. The load gets heavy at times, but I would still do this all over again. My heart is grateful that I still have my mom, and again, she is the best mom I could ever have. So when you don't think that the reward is visible at that moment, when your loved one feels better or has a good day, that is your reward. Thank you.
Beautifully said. Thank you. So that has concluded the questions that I asked and the interview answers. And if anybody would like to ask a question or even just make comments to our audience, we're going to come down and we're going to hand you the mic. Miss Kelly Ryan.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to thank our panel. You really gave a very detailed perspective of your everyday life, and I thank you for being vulnerable and to share with all of us. I appreciate that. And also I wanted to thank Andrew and Tina and Alejandra for putting this together, and Dr. Bowen. You're marvelous, marvelous. And the only thing, Tina will get it from me, but your contact information and where I can give support to my support group in the San Fernando Valley to encourage them to seek second opinions, third opinions. I think keeping an open mind is positive. But I wanted to thank you. All the years I've been coming to medical conferences, by far, this one was superb. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you, Kelly. Anybody else have any comments? Would you like to share anything with our panel?
This one's for Brandon. I just wanted to say I've had scleroderma for 30 years and my husband still hasn't accepted it. I think he's scared.
Thank you, Christine. Yeah, it's an honest thing that you sometimes have to go through. And again, in a room where people can understand more than anybody else can. Thank you. Anybody else have any words for our panel? Last call for alcohol. That's a nay. Nancy?
I also want to thank the panel for sharing your story with us all. I have my caregiver here. She's been with me since day one, since the day I met Tina at UCLA after seeing Dr. Clemens. And I think in the almost, 10 years, she missed one doctor's appointment and was devastated. So the support that you get from the family is so important. And I just want to thank you for sharing your story, because I'm sure each and every one of us in this room can identify with some part of what you've gone through. And just thank you very much. And again, Tina, thank you so much. And you and Andrew for all the hard work you guys did to put this together. I love coming to these because you learn so much. And we can learn so much I just met somebody, I went to my very first one in San Diego, and she's sitting right there. And we go, I think I know you. And so, you meet a lot of wonderful people. And I'm just very pleased that I've met all of you. And just keep coming to these. These are very important. You learn so much. You really do. It's worth all the time and effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else? You were supposed to have that microphone in your hand, sir.
I just want to say to Brandon and Michelle, you said how family has not considered or, come to the grasp that you have this disease. I can relate to that. I got sick and I have no family who has visited me. But I'm going to tell you one thing. You lose family, but not only within the scleroderma family here, and friends have come out of the woodwork who I have not seen since high school, who have been my biggest supporters. So you might lose family or people who you thought were friends, but you're going to gain more. You're going to gain not only within our community, but you're going to find a neighbor, or somebody at the store who's going to be one of your biggest supporters. So just keep your head up and know that there's a lot more people out there, and they'll come.
Thank you, Glory.
Can I just say, I think the people who do come around, your relationships get much stronger as a result. So.
I'm glad that you actually said that. And I also want to say that there are a lot of caregivers that go through this that are really hands-on with their loved one, but the other family members aren't there, just like Brandon is saying, and they really take one for the team because they're the only one. And sometimes it's really hard. Some people have a big family, a big support system, and for some, it's just that one loved one. And it can be very taxing. And so while the person that living with scleroderma is going through a lot, so is that person that's caregiving. And a lot of times they take one for the team because they try to always have that stiff upper lip for their loved one. So I just want to make sure that we're always, acknowledging, both parties. It's not always easy. And sometimes we don't know until a loved one gets sick how challenging it's going to be on a relationship. But I respect the person living with scleroderma and the loved ones that help, whether it's your husband, brother, sister, wife. We've got some extraordinary people in our audience today that set such a beautiful example, and I'm honored to have known all of you. And I always say this one thing, while I don't wish scleroderma on anybody, if it's not for it, I wouldn't have so many people that have enriched my life because of scleroderma. So I just wanted to say that, and I want to thank you all for coming today. Andrew would like to say a couple remarks before we end, and then we'll conclude for the day.
Thanks, Tina. So just a couple of things before we end the day. I just wanted to mention, this was our first year back to doing events in the community again, and I want to thank everyone who's attended. We started the year in Las Vegas. We had a great event. We overraised our goal, so I want to thank Nancy and everyone in Las Vegas. It was our first event outside of California, so thank you. We then went on to LA, and we're close to getting our goal there. We're a couple $1,000s short, but we had a goal that was Emmanuel set that we didn't think was going to be near impossible, but we had a great return to La Mirada this year. We have San Diego coming up on October 6th. Glory, there, we're going to do a great event in San Diego. So if you're around October 6th, join us in San Diego. It's the last one of the year, and we look forward to coming back next year. And the events are called A Million Steps for scleroderma. And it's called A Million Steps because we have a man, one of our other new board members, Jim Hines, who walks 1 million steps every year for scleroderma, supporting the foundation for the past 4 years. We decided to do our event sort of based on that, his walk. He starts his walk this year, September 19th, so we're going to be following him, and so I hope you follow him on our website. And then I just wanted to mention, Bark for a Cure is going to return. Our calendar's coming back September 30th to November 15th, so dogs, pets, any pet you have, please join our calendar. $1 a vote, anybody can do that. It's so much fun. And then we're ending our year with our gala, our 23rd Key to a Cure gala on November 16th at the Marina Del Rey Marriott. It's going to be a little bit different this year. We're going to celebrate we're going to honor our past, and we're going to honor Josephine Battiani, our founder. So it'll be a great program. And then we're going to celebrate our future. We're going to be introducing and announcing an endowment, our largest gift ever given to the foundation. So it will be exciting to be there, and you'll hear all about that at the gala. And in closing, I want to say thank you to Tina. I don't know how much, I don't know how she does it. She gets doctors together. I mean, do you know how hard it is to wrangle a few doctors? And she does this not just here. We're doing another one up in Northern California in October. And these events, working with doctors that are so important, and who give their time, and Tina has to wrangle that all together, get us all here, put together a great program, wonderful meal, and wonderful panel, and you guys were absolutely inspiring, so thank you. And so I just want to say, Tina, we could not do this without you, so thank you. If I could afford 12 roses, you would have them all, but foundation dollars.
Too much.
So Tina, thank you so much. All right, is there anything else?
No, you're too sweet.
So that's a wrap. Thank
Yeah.
you, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same. Thank you, Andrew. You just touched my heart. This is going to conclude our Patient Education Day. And again, we are very thankful for our speakers today and our panel today. Thank you guys so much for sharing and being vulnerable with our audience. It means everything. And I knew I picked you all for a reason, so thank you. And I just, hope that you all gain a better understanding about this difficult disease, and we hope that you leave here feeling informed, optimistic, and above all, supported. So thank you again for coming today. Please fill out your evaluation before you leave.